Booyah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. If you were on the channel over the weekend, you saw my claims that the federal government is out to not only smear my name, but destroy the lives of anybody who dared speak up against Justin Trudeau and the government throughout the pandemic. If you haven't seen that video, I advise you go back and check it out. We launched that out on Saturday evening. And essentially what's happened in my personal life, in terms of purchasing a home, there's a standard check that comes through a money laundering service through the government that, of course, flipped up a warning saying that I may be involved in money laundering out of my home. Again, this is a federally run site, so it does make me question what is going on here. Why am I all of a sudden being tagged on here? Of course, my realtor pointing out, hey, don't you do political YouTube for a living and sell politically charged books at Justin Trudeau? And I said, why, yes, I do. And all of a sudden the dots start to connect with each other and we start to realize that this is the federal government playing hardball because they're salty over what's happened. Now, what's even more salty and more important is that when you look towards the Coutts 4 or Tamara Lich and Chris Barber, you look at Pat King and all the people being prosecuted after their events during the Freedom Convoy or their involvement during the Freedom Convoy, both in provincial barricades as well as out in Ottawa. Now, Chris Barber and Tamara still have one day of trial to wrap up, but it looks like things are going to go positive for them as they wrap up that case. Again, I don't think things are going to be easy for them coming out of that trial. I think that that trial was a colossal waste of time, especially when we're talking about mischief charges. We'll save that for another video down the line, but what I want to talk about today is the Coutts 4. Now, we've seen over time the Coutts 4 continuously prosecuted for their involvement while they were baited by RCMP officers and held in jail for almost 3 years, over 3 years, while they waited for their day in court. Of course, Marty up north, good friend of the channel, tweeting out here, apparently there's a notice of appeal and it's just a formality. And the decision to actually appeal or not in the Coutts case will come later. Now, what's been filed here and what's I'm sorry that it kind of takes up the screen, but I will read it all out. This came out on August 20th saying that the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service has filed a notice of appeal as there's a limited time to do this following a verdict. Keep in mind the verdict hasn't dropped at the time of filming this video. This will preserve the ACPS's ability to proceed with an appeal once sentencing is completed. A thorough review of the evidence and rulings by trial judge will be completed, and then a final decision as to whether or not to proceed when the appeal will be made. This bulletin will be updated as necessary as these matters proceed. So the prosecution already filing for appeal. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I often found that appeals are usually filed if they're not happy with the sentencing or the verdict that comes through in a trial. And again, I could be wrong. But what this speaks volumes to is the price that people are paying for standing up to the government. It speaks volumes as to where we are as a country when it comes to exercising your rights within your constitutional Charter of Rights of Freedom, which Justin Trudeau uses as toilet paper, to essentially stand up and say, I don't like what's going on in my backyard. Again, when we look back to what happened with Chris Barber and Tamara Lich, their trial was only supposed to be a matter of about 2 weeks, and it's been dragged out to the last year, delay after delay after delay, of course, simply because prosecution have no ground to stand on in order to prosecute these two individuals. Don't forget that when that court case wraps up, there is still the provincial lawsuit being filed through Paul Champ and Zexi Lee to the tune of all of the money that's sitting in escrow. Yes, people who constantly claim that Tamara and Chris and so many others took that money and did something with it, it is sitting in escrow. The provincial government essentially wanting to get their hands on it and do whatever. I mean, you have to realize and remember that the Freedom Convoy embarrassed the Canadian government. It showed a mockery of what citizens can actually do when they're determined to stand up against tyranny in their country. And the government wants to make an example out of them. And they also want that money that, of course, they've never raised in any kind of fundraising motions for their seat in the House of Commons, but truckers could do it over a period of a couple of days. It angers them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that provincial case, if that provincial case even moves forward, if those funds are to be redistributed to the truckers that were taking part in that convoy. But in the case of the Coutts 4, what blows my mind is that they've already spent 3 years in jail. They've already dealt hardships, one of them taking an appeal. And again, now we're sitting down to the tune of essentially the provincial government or the Crown prosecution saying, we're not satisfied until they're locked up forever. So we're just going to make their lives inconvenient. We're going to file our appeals. We're going to continue dragging out this process for as long as we can to make their lives inconvenient, merely for blocking a Canadian-US border and standing up for their rights and beliefs. It's going to be crazy to see what happens as we move down the line with this. But again, I wanted to talk about this. I wanted to bring it to your guys' attention. Kind of get your 2 cents as to what's happening, what we can see happening down the future with the Coutts 4. Do you think it's going to be a fair sentencing for them? Meaning something like time served? Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure to click that button below, as well as hit your bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, my live streaming show, where we talk about everything that's happened this week in politics, everything coming up in the week ahead, and some back and forth within our community. It's always great to hear what you guys have to say outside of making these videos, and I always look forward to chatting with you each and every Friday night here on the channel, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, every Friday night. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.